We're making this today. Today, we're building an entire hard techno Psy kick from scratch. Don't worry about memorizing every setting in the video. Your kick isn't going to sound better just because your EQ node is at 728 Hz instead of 730. Try to understand what we're making and why we're making each decision. The settings will change from track to track. The concepts don't. Alright, let's start with the punch. Everything starts with a sine wave. A sine wave in our Serum. And I have bypassed and deactivated all LFOs or processing just so I can walk you through the process. So we start with a sine wave. A sine wave only contains a fundamental frequency. It has no harmonics whatsoever. But this is perfect for our foundation of the kick. Right now, as you can see, it's just a tone. But a kick becomes a kick when its pitch drops rapidly over time. Let me enable the pitch envelope so you understand what I'm talking about. One pitch envelope is enough, but I'm using multiple envelopes because I want independent control over the transient and body. Separating responsibility is one of the most useful habits you can develop in sound design. LFO2, let me activate it so you can listen. LFO3 and 4 are both acting on the transient, so as you can see, the LFO is not bipolar, it's unipolar. Same for LFO4, but you'll notice that LFO4 goes to the main tuning. Only up to the main tuning, just to take care of that click. And now with all the pitch envelopes, our sine wave sounds like this. Okay, what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna add the oscillator C, an extra oscillator, but we won't add any level to this because we just want this to phase distort our original signal. So we turn on PD from C in this oscillator. Oscillator C's level is at 0. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna use LFO6 to add this effect to our kick, but just in the beginning. What the phase distortion does is this. Let me give you an example. This is our kick without any phase distortion. This is an extreme effect and I just want it at the beginning of my kick so it adds a little bit of character, and I do this with this LFO before and after. Okay, now we also got character. This oscillator, we're using it only to drive the phase distortion on oscillator A, and it changes our sine wave waveform, adding harmonics, and those harmonics will become material for the distortion that comes in later. And speaking of distortion, we also have some effects here. I will go through them fast. So we start with a convolution river to add more frequency content for the distortion later and to add a bit of stereo image. Now we add hyperdimension, which is just for the stereo image of our kick. Now we will distort. It's the first stage of distortion. It's a tube distortion. Be careful not to go overboard. 80% is good, and I also turn down the mix. Now we're controlling a little bit the low end. Then we distort again using a soft saturator. Then we compress. It's an upward compression. As you can see, the threshold is all the way down, and I touch the below a bit. Also messed around with the highs, mids, and lows, adjusting to my taste. This is how it sounds like. And then we apply a hard clip. So envelope number 5 controls the utility and also the level of oscillator A. And that's to have some control over the volume. First, let's listen what it sounds like without this. And now we added the volume control. Let's see what it sounds like. Now for the final processing of this kick, we also added a hard clipper. Just a little bit of push on the drive. And now we add the transient shaper, adding the attack, a little bit of pump and turning down the sustain a bit. And after that, another hard clipper just to keep it at 0. And this is our punch. Moving on, the rumble. What I did for the rumble is I used the same Serum preset patch for the kick, and then I processed it to make it a rumble. What our Serum sounds like is this. Just the kick we made before. But then what I'm doing is using 2 hybrid reverbs in parallel. They are 2 different impulse responses. Each one covers a specific part of the rumble. This creates like a more complex tail. Okay, so let's listen to the hybrid reverbs now. This is hybrid reverb 1. And this one is hybrid reverb 2. So you'll notice that each chain has a drum bass right after the hybrid reverb, and each drum bass has different settings. What they sound like together is this. So I'm gonna use a glue compressor now just to help stabilize the signal, make it one. It sounds like this. And now I'll use an EQ to determine which frequencies continue through the chain, and of course we don't want all these high frequencies for our rumble. Sounds more like a rumble now. Saturation will increase our density. Then we'll clean up the highs a bit as well again. Using utility to keep our low end mono. And finally, a G clip, clipping. I also resampled, it sounds like this. Now let's create the Psy Bass. So we're gonna use Serum for this as well. Just a saw oscillator, nothing complicated. I will pitch it down by 2 octaves. I'm using a saw wave because it contains both even and odd harmonics, which makes it great starting point for bass sounds. So as you'll notice, I have one LFO here, only one. It controls almost everything in this patch. It controls volume, filter frequency, distortion amount, and EQ gain. Keeping multiple parameters tied to one modulation source helps everything move together. Oscillator A passes through filter 1. Filter 1 is a diffuser filter. Mess around with the settings. Those work best for me. And then we pass filter 1 to filter 2, which also has an envelope, or LFO1 envelope. Okay, our Psy Bass right now sounds like this. It's time to add some effects and distortion to it. As you can see, we're starting off with a compressor. And then we are distorting with Stomp Box. Now some EQ to take care of unwanted frequencies. Then another distortion. Another EQ. Now a multiband compressor. And finally a soft clip to take care of the peaks. We got that out of our Serum. Now we want to process it a bit further. We took out all the sub bass because we're gonna get our sub bass from the rumble. And we took out the harsh high frequencies as well. Now we add an OTT to exaggerate the details. Now with that EQ, we take care of the new problems that OTT introduced. And finally we clip. So at this point, we have 3 sounds. We have our punch, we have our rumble, and also we have our Psy Bass. Now I want to add them all together. But before I do that, I want to process them a bit more. So what I did here in this ramble group is these are both the same file. These are the resampled file of our ramble, and I chose two spots in this recording that I'd like to use together to make my final ramble. Let's see what they sound like. So the first spot I chose was this, and I processed it like this. Just a bit of control in the low end. Now my second layer is this. Not much processing and a lot of bass. And now I process them together by adding a bass shaper saturator. Then I clean it up. And then I clip it. This way, we have our unique ramble. Now, I want to mix the tail together before I mix the whole kick together. And what I mean by the tail, I mean the ramble we just made, which is this one, and the Psy Bass we made before, which is this one. So you'll notice that there is not much processing here in my two layers. On my Psy Bass, there is nothing, basically, there's nothing on the Psy Bass. And on my Ramble channel, there's just an EQ that's taking care of frequencies around 88 Hz because that's where my Psy Bass hits. The Ramble takes care of lower than that. We took this down to make space for the Psy Bass. Psy Bass and Ramble, both of them together sound like this. And I processed them a little bit together by adding a glue compressor, EQ to clean it up a little bit, and of course a clipper. That's our tail. Sounds nice. Last part of the kick creation is to make the final kick group. We use the punch we made before and the tail we made before. Okay, and as you'll notice, there is not any processing on each of those channels except for the tail layer. We added a kilohertz compactor, and what this does is basically side chaining using intersample peaks. We turn on the compactor and now... Okay, so final processing for the kick. We start off with an EQ, just to clean up. Then we add a saturator, a bass shaper saturator, and we turn down the dry wet because we don't need all that. Then I added a multiband compressor taking care of different frequency ranges. And then it's my clip transient shaper clip stage. So I clip it, I then transient shape it to enhance the punch and the transient, and then a final clip at 0. And of course, let's not forget the reverb trick. So just 4% of reverb. Beautiful. So now we resampled our kick and let's test it. Yeah, let's listen to it in some context. And that's the complete kick. Remember, don't focus on memorizing numbers. Focus on understanding why things are there. The settings will change, the concepts won't. If you found this useful at all and want to grab ready-to-use samples for free, grab the free version of Heavy Machinery, link is in the description. And if you'd like to hang out with other like-minded producers, get some feedback on your tracks, or help another fellow producer out, then you can join the Noise Factory Discord. We've got a growing community of producers, link it also in the description. This was Hypofair from Noise Factory. Thank you all for watching, and now go make some noise.